Blakey and Tucks, they're talking Cardiff City and some other stuff. Blakey and Tucks, Doel he asked the questions on Blakey's Bootroom. Will always be blue.
Gotcha.
Good afternoon, welcome once again to Blakey's Bootroom here on Wales Online. Nathan and Steve in the studio at the end of a rather eventful few days for Cardiff City, rather eventful week. Difficult to know where to start.
I don't know what we're going to talk about, John. There's nothing, as usual, there's nothing happening down there.
Let's talk about Noon's goals.
It's always about...
Nuninho.
That is Nuninho at his best.
Well, let's talk about Noon if you want. I mean,
let's talk about Molyneux, I suppose. First off, we had a...
Best performance of the season, was it?
Arguably, I think so, yeah. Best I've seen. So,
yeah. Particularly away from home, I thought it was the most enjoyable trip.
It didn't start off like that, did it? First 10, 15 minutes, it was not a drab affair. You just thought, poor quality, both teams. Yeah, this looks like a kind of a
were a bit brighter
clash.
Early on. They had a few half chances.
Yeah, we at the bar, mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was like 18 minutes. That was Stuart O'Keefe. Well, a lovely...
he covered some ground,
his best performance for Cardiff. I mean...
And then the stunner, absolutely
beautiful
frightening.
Couple of goals, and I think the big thing for them as well, like we were talking about this, was when Wolves got back to 2-1 just before half time. With what's been happening this season, you thought, whoa, hold on a minute, we're not going to get another collapse or whatever. Getting that third goal.
Well, they come out and press the game right from the second half, because Cardiff religiously, like I said to Tux, we've only been playing one half of football. You know what I mean? We've either been poor first half, great second half, or vice versa. They came out and showed great intent, pressed them up high, because Wolves weren't like, Barcelona. You put pressure on certain defenders, they were going to make mistakes.
But they were in form at home.
Yeah, they won 5 out of 6. I'm not
sure the 4 games on the bounce they just won, so they weren't. Their tails were up, and I thought Cardiff made them look reasonably. I
think the lads
ordinary
Zayak or something like that, and the lad Graham up front from, and the striker.
I see that. I think it's like Graham. That Graham was stretchered off. Yeah. He's done his cruciate out for the season, which is bad news. I thought he looked dangerous.
He's very dangerous.
He was giving Peltier.
Twisted Peltier a couple of times.
And Manga was coming across to cover, and he was having a few problems. But I mean, all round, a really good showing from Cardiff, and we say the best of the season. And I think we got to talk about the changes that Slade made.
It was a different looking Cardiff. So you mentioned Stuart O'Keefe, so a player who's just been nowhere near it.
I think Gunnarsson must be injured. I don't want to sound too vague about it, but I'm presuming he's carrying a knock because there were a few carrying knocks. And Stuart O'Keefe came in with to partner Rowles. I thought that was interesting ahead of Dekashwi for a start.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
fallen completely.
Well, as I say, he was like a stalwart at the start, but now suddenly O'Keefe seems to be being preferred in there, and that decision was one of many decisions Russell Slade made, and that was one of many decisions that he seemed to get right.
How did they line up then? Because obviously Mason was the only recognised striker in that. Anthony, who didn't go to the game, saying how did City's 5-man midfield line up? Was it 2 defensive and 3 attacking? No. What did Pilkington do? How did he?
It was.
O'Keefe and Rowles really as a 2, a normal 2, and then he had Noon on the right, Whittingham on the left. Whittingham played a bit deeper, more of a, it wasn't like not going to get forward, and then they had Pilkington and Mason, and Mason probably dropped in the hole more than Pilkington. I know Russell Slade said, he's playing Pilkington in a 10, which he can do, but both of those players playing a 10. If anything, Pilkington challenged the 2 centre halves more. He didn't get a lot of change in the air, but what he done was challenge and put himself about a bit. and made life tough for them. So he played the further forward of the two, for my liking, for most of the game, and Mason just played a bit deeper. So it wasn't like a change of system or anything like that. It was just the two, really. Rather than play side by side, they just played in a straight line.
It's like a 4-4-1-1 maybe.
Yeah.
And
then they rotated back and forth, Pilkington and Mason. But listen, it was. Trust me, it wasn't that Cardiff were playing good football or anything like that. It was literally the quality of the first goal lifted them, and then the quality of the second goal, the way they celebrated and the fans celebrated, it was just like a wow moment. It really was, and you just thought, whew, and then they just went up again in confidence, and then slowly but surely, late on, Wolves knew they had to get a goal in the first half and managed to get one late on, but second half, you're expecting Wolves to come out and be all over them, but they didn't. They done what I say, fire with fire. Go and take it to them. Took it to them, and really and truly, they probably should have. They should, if you're going to be critical about anything, they should have scored more goals, because on the counter attack, they probably had at least two very good opportunities. I can remember one where they broke and they had a 3v2 at one stage. I can remember a 3v3. So they should have got one or two more goals, but from where they were and how they were playing, to give that performance from like 15 minutes onwards, I thought it was enjoyable.
Yeah, what
for the first time in a long time, I really enjoyed the game.
What about Russell Slade? Bob from Cumbrae says the Wolves result shows that the players are responding positively to Russell Slade. Why doesn't anyone give this man any credit? All he gets is stick when results don't go well. And you would have pegged this game, given everything that had happened, the poor form, the transfer embargo, which obviously we'll come on to in detail, the fact that the chairman has come out and said the jury's out on the manager. There's talk that,
that didn't help at all.
2-3 games for him to save his job. And he changes the team quite, fairly significantly, and they produce the best display of the season. That says something.
It does. I think it says something about Slade himself. I mean, I said that in my match report, and the team. I think I've said on here, I've not doubted the team spirit that much. I believe that
Shut up, you have.
No. I haven't really. I haven't really. I've said. I mean, don't you forget when I did my emotional outburst a couple of weeks ago? My kind of like I have a dream speech or whatever it was. I did say then. I said the players needed support because I thought that they were giving
clearly up for it.
Yeah, they were up for it, and that really showed. And as for Slade himself, I mean, there is intense pressure on him. I mean, Blakey would say there's always pressure. I think it's been intensified recently. I think the cup exit and then the defeat at Hull, I think that coupled together,
that's naturally going,
increased it.
Yeah.
And whether you think he had so many games to turn around or whatever, he couldn't have done much more than he did by changing the side, getting a very positive result. And and I mean, if we were saying he had 3 games, that was the most difficult one of the 3. On paper, you would imagine, and it was an incredibly positive performance and an incredibly positive result. So I don't think anything's massively changed. I mean, what's interesting there with that comment from, I can't remember his name, that guy, that's probably one of the first positive ones we've had about Slade. How often do we read out positive stories?
I've always said there's no point in really discussing whether him to stay or go, or whether he should go. It is what it is. He's your manager until the decision's made. Listen, fans who don't like it, don't want to stay away. That's their prerogative. They don't have to come if they don't have to support. And I know many of them don't like him, and don't agree with what he does, and don't agree with his signings and changes. But I don't go one side or the other. This is one result at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's not get carried away. It's one game. Very good result, and probably the best football I've seen them play at times this season. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't like, wow. The goals were wow. All 3 of them. They were brilliant goals, excellent goals. But you weren't thinking, they didn't come from like little one-touch play, but it was just individual brilliance, basically, from Noon. First 2, and the third, another bit of individual brilliance. They thought he was going to shoot, and he's just slotted a lovely little side pass, and Raul's just hit the daisy cutter, unstoppable. So, just fantastic goals, rather than interplay sort of 20 passes and it ends up in the opposition net. So from where they were, it's positive, it's forward, it's better. It was far more entertaining, you know. But when you got 2 worldy goals like that, you know,
I mean,
it's worthwhile going for one of them.
The point is there, as Blakey's sort of saying, unless they follow it up now, isn't it, with the Rotherham
that's the
game?
thing.
They've got
Consistency.
They've got a run of games coming up, which on paper I know nothing's going to... I think there's Charlton in there coming up, there's MK Dons as well, Huddersfield, and we say Rotherham. So if they don't go on a run, I think they're 5 points off the playoffs now, which is obviously better than the 7 when they started the day.
Well, this is the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you don't, the games become, on paper, more difficult to get.
You would like to see out of these next 4 or 5, 4 wins and a draw, a little unbeaten run, confidence building. And if we're going to be negative again, we've kind of been saying that all season, haven't we? We've been saying they won, let's get on a run.
It's similar to the Premier League season, if you remember, to stay up. And I kept saying we're going to run out of games. We keep saying, okay, when we get on this.
Yeah,
remember that, John? And and then all of a sudden you find yourself in March, and
there ain't enough games.
Ain't enough games to get up
there. They have got to follow this up by beating Rotherham at home. The worry is, of course, they've struggled against these kind of sides, the MK Dons, Rotherham. I mean, I know away in that, but they seem to have performed better at times against the more established sides in there. So that's the one.
That's a mental issue, then, isn't it?
That's the one concern. But
Alex, perhaps some typical City, consistently inconsistent. One great performance will, I'm sure, shortly be followed by 3 games of total dross. I prefer Slade out now, he says, but the embargo means he'll probably see out his contract.
Yeah, that's what I agree.
Well, that's the point I would make, I think, for all this talk of the pressure on him. I mean, I don't think Blakey agrees with this, but in a perverse way, I see the embargo strengthens Slade's position now there. Well, you've got the thing that he's, he can't, his hands are tied, and then you look at it, who would come in? I know there's talk of promoting from within, but who wants to come in there? And most of you says now, with them 5 points off the playoffs, off the back of that good performance, give him until the end of the season, isn't
Listen, even if he, I would say he's a definite at the end of the season. Whether he goes, whether he stays, I honestly don't know. I still don't think it's as straightforward as come the end of the season, he's gone. I really don't. But the next manager, if he does move on, if they don't get that right, or close to being right, we're going to be in a real precarious position. Trust me.
The problem is with appointing managers at Cardiff now, since Slade, is the perception is that they, I mean, I'm not even necessarily saying this is true or whatever, but the perception is that because of the power that Vincent Tan exerts, or allegedly so,
in managers off, it deters
you're not going to get a Pulis, you're not going to get
because they want control.
You're not going to get a Warnock, if you would think, because these are guys they want total control on pitch
Well,
affairs.
if they're gonna get sacked, they want to fall on their sword.
Yeah, they don't want it to be because of someone else's interference. And the perception is at Cardiff that for some reason, and Slade has reinforced that as a kind of, I'm not disparaging, but a kind of yes man, prepared to go along with the kind of interference from the top. Yeah. So if that's the perception of the club, that in the summer, if Slade does go, that's going to be a massive handicap for anyone coming in.
Harry Redknapp is a name for you. He's available.
Yeah, but again, he's another guy you want the total hands on. But then again, don't they all, most of them?
If you're gonna get sacked, I always say, if you've got a director of football or something like that, it's no good as a club and a board and a chairman and an owner and a chief exec. You just going off with the knowledge of the sporting director or technical director and signing players. It's got to be an association with the manager. You've got the managers. Well,
there's this transfer committee, isn't there?
Right,
Liverpool,
but
not quite.
I look at that committee and think, well,
Russell Slade's on it.
We'll take him out. There's no one placed really to make that sort of decision, is there? Because no one's ever been in football before. This was the point I was making you before. It's like if I'm whatever line of work I'm in, I don't expect to go into another profession. I don't understand why it's happening in football, why so many owners are coming in and just saying, yeah, I know this, it's like any other business. I mean, I wouldn't go into the banking industry and pretend I know it. I wouldn't go into farming and say, well, I know this because, you know, I had a horse last year. And, you know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy. It's like you obviously speak to people.
Blakey now.
You look
You've got a tractor.
Yeah, I have, yeah. I look at like QPR, my mate Les has gone in there. And, you know, everyone's going, oh, you know, instant success. You won't get instant success. It takes time to build now. The time QPR have been swashing here, there, everywhere. They need stability, and then from those foundations, solid foundations, things can grow. But you look at like Charlton, you look at Fulham, you look at, there's so many teams at the moment who are, you know, Birmingham, you know, Villa. You look at all these teams and think to yourself, you know, these owners come in, buy clubs, and then.
But that's not always been the case in many ways. You very, very rarely got someone like an owner level. You like Alan Sugar, you look
at someone like
make their money
Villa
elsewhere, and what they think, I want to be in football. I love football.
But those people would be heavily reliant upon the managers and the manager would decide the players who he's going to buy. It's gone away from that model now, and I'm saying that's okay. But still, there has to be some sort of crossover relationship between the manager, a technical director, or the manager and the CEO to understand, right, it's no good you buying Craig Noone if I need Steve Tucker.
You don't need that.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah,
But
surely the idea that, I mean, whatever you might think, surely whatever the idea, if they've got this committee that's got Slade on it and Mehmet Dalman and then isn't that what you're seeking? I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, but it doesn't
work. That's the model that you're looking for, isn't it?
It's a contradiction. Football. No, but if it's a contradiction, if you're saying the manager at this moment in time largely is controlled by what's up above.
Well, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that's the image of it. I'm just saying that's the image.
So is he strong enough to say? Is he strong enough, or is he in a strong enough position to be able to say, well, no, I don't want him?
Well, I think surely Slade has to be in a position where he can go, I want this player. This is a player I'm looking at. I mean, obviously it's talked about.
When you look
You'd like to think that people like Mehmet Dalman and Kenju are more on, conduits to Vincent on a financial level. Well, that's too expensive. That we can't afford that. Okay.
That's
what you'd like to think.
That's where the expertise should be.
Yeah, that's what you would think.
So I mean, it should be. I go to you and say I need.
I've got no evidence against that they're happening. Nobody said to me.
Well, I think you don't need the evidence. I think you look at. Like Kenju done an interview with us on Saturday and said at one point we had 49 pros. I mean, that is down to the club. You can't say, oh, that's down to the manager. That's down to you as a club going, okay, yeah, we'll sign him. You're not looking at any sort of structure and strategy of, right, how this is going to affect us. If you want to roll now on to the point of the embargo, how it's going to affect us on that front, how it's going to affect our under 21s and our 18s who are coming up. You've just got a bottleneck of 50 pros at the top of your. You can only play 11. You can only register 21 in the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? You're only going to need really and truly 25. So you've effectively got 24 pros more than what you need.
I think it's like we said this before.
Take those 24 pros, take their wages, take 10 of them, take their wages for a year. You buy land and build a training ground. And still come out with change.
I think the fact is it all comes down to...
Do you understand what I mean, John? That's a great legacy for Vincent Tan. What he's done with the stadium, and then like to go identify some land, build a training ground, call it Tan Lodge or something like that. It'd be fantastic. That's the sort of legacy. And then, I do think he's in the position, Vincent Tan, to be able to say, well, no, I don't think that is... within our budgetary confinements. No, you're not having that player. Because managers will just continue to ask.
We're still recovering from Solskjaer.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's
to me. I mean,
and Mackay, come on.
Well, all right, but I still say.
Listen, 10 million for my man up front. I don't care what anyone says. Yeah, that's not a £10 million player. You don't sniff at 10 million.
That is when the squad became so inflated.
Well, I think what happened. The problem was Mackay, for me, might well have kept them in the Premier League, and we wouldn't be having.
That's besides the point.
Okay, forget that.
We're talking about wastage of funds.
When Solskjaer came in. It was just bonkers, wasn't it? These players that were coming in, the Bergstaller and your flaming Matt Starley and your Wolf Eikram and all these guys, They threw money at it. It was the wrong appointment, but they didn't know that at the start. They threw money at it, desperate to stay in the Premier League. They failed. I don't think they've ever fully recovered. Like you say, to have 49 pros at one point.
It does take years to get that
Yes,
sorted.
I think they're still
It will
trying
take
to come
about
through,
3 or 4 years to get that sorted. Like I said to you,
that.
get 12 out, bring 5 in. And you have to keep doing that, say, every transfer window or get them out on loan, but you want them permanent, you know.
But there's still players have been coming in, though.
Well,
I think
we
there's 15.
how many did we name are out on loan at the moment?
Well, I know. I mean, there's still the problem still persists, and until there's some kind of rationalisation of it, you're going to end up.
And it's difficult. It takes time because once other clubs know you've made a mistake, it's like when clubs know you've just got 100 million quid, and you know we want to buy John. You know, instead of him being 5 million like he was yesterday, once you got 100 million quid, he's now 15 million. That's the nature of the beast. Do you know what I mean? So I think Cardiff have put themselves in a terrible position financially, you know, and there was no need for it. It just needed a bit more careful planning and understanding of how, you know, football works, rather than thinking, you know, it's not my gig, it's not my field, but I'm an expert in it. That's how you get burned.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just looking for some. We did a thing on some stats the other day regarding Solskjaer's transfers.
I was happy. I had a great day Saturday. I watched the game. It was fantastic.
Of the £21.3 million Solskjaer spent, so far just £2 million has been recouped in terms of fees. You know, despite 8 of those players being shipped on. I think it was something ridiculous, like only 15 of the last 50 Cardiff City players who've left the club have actually commanded a
money.
Fee. Yeah,
that don't surprise me.
Probably tells you about.
I mean, I think, as Blakey said, we're still recovering.
What about?
Could take years.
Talking about the here and now, then. What about the relationship between manager and chairman now, Mehmet Dalman? Obviously, Friday, you just alluded to it in a comment. Friday, Dalman came out and said he's our manager. He's been here for a while. His position comes under scrutiny. I'm disappointed. I can't hide my disappointment. I can't speak for the board, but speaking for myself, the jury is out. He just going to say, as it is on every one of us. Then Slade, after the match on the weekend, sort of there was appeared a potential.
Well, I thought Slade was quite telling that he had a little. I thought it was the first time he'd ever had a slight pop back. I don't know if you remember that quote, because you were in the press conference.
He said
when he was asked, he said perhaps it's not just. He was on about the transfer bargain. He said perhaps it's not just me that should be under scrutiny. Everybody here.
Now, a lot of fans would say they've been waiting. They've been moaning about Slade. They've been waiting for someone from the club to say something, and they would be pleased to hear Dalman come out, the chairman, forthright, saying, "Yep, this is."
I don't agree with that, John. I disagree. Why? Because I think the statement was made as a personal statement. I think what he was saying, that all manager and all people are under scrutiny. That's true. Everybody knows that. We're all under scrutiny every day, no matter what field we work in. So I accept that.
What about he says, I'm disappointed?
Okay, let me finish and then
okay, sorry, man.
So then when he says, I speak on behalf of, I don't speak on behalf of the board or the owner, this is my personal opinion. The problem is that someone from the board could come out and say something totally different, and you don't know what the actual owner's thinking. So it just creates more questions, because then you start trying to get in and separate, and does that come from the chair, from the owner? And then Vincent Tan comes out and says, well, no, that's not the way you're thinking. My way of thinking, I'm quite happy we're sat in a position where we can go on. So you just don't know. So that's where I say the inexperience comes in. That statement, if that was a collective, board, owner, and he's speaking on behalf of the club, it's a club statement, official statement, I say fair enough, but there's no need to put your manager under even more intense pressure than what he already is, because it's ridiculous, we all know that. Plus then you've just had a transfer embargo. I've seen it as kind of a deflect. So fans are going to be able to jump on and say, yeah, see, look, even the chairman says, look, blah, 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 blah. Listen, you don't need to put more pressure on the manager. He is under ridiculous amounts of pressure. You know, our friend here, you know, little stories here and there. You know, the fans, I think there's a group collective, probably 90% of the fans would rather see Russell Slade go. So it doesn't help the situation. If it's released by the club, then you say fair enough. But personal statements, you know, that was to be. Stop defending him. Stop defending him. It's a personal statement. But you don't know that's.
If I make that, if I say I think Russell Slade is rubbish, you don't know that's
from the club because he just said.
No, I didn't say it's from the club.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, he's already said he's not speaking for the board. So the board have a strong opinion. The chief executive has a strong opinion. The secretary will have an opinion, and the owner will have an opinion. Now, if you're speaking as a collective, you can't have it both ways, Tux. You can't say, "Oh, we want to see the club together, moving forward, and as one," and then have people coming out and making personal statements. It just doesn't work like that.
How often?
It doesn't work like that.
How often, when managers are under pressure, do you get?
It doesn't work like that.
Hang on a minute, Blakey. Does he get the dreaded vote of confidence from the chairman? I know it's a cliche, but you always get that. A guy's under pressure. He's lost 3 games. So-and-so has been given a vote of confidence by chairman. So-and-so. It is an accepted practice that the chairman of a club will speak out and say, "No, we're behind you." He's spoken out there and he's come down negative.
But listen, a chairman will come out and say a vote of confidence because that's come from the board. It's not a personal statement. They're two totally different things.
I think quite often they are personal statements.
Well, that's because you're deciding.
I mean, I've dealt with other chairmen.
How can you say the club come out and give a statement of saying, you know, we give our backing to the manager and, you know, a week later he's gone, and say, that's the same as a chairman coming out and giving his personal opinion, not backed by the board, not backed by the CEO, and not backed by the owner. So you don't know. They might all be thinking the exact same thing. My point is, say it as a club, as a one.
I've dealt with other Cardiff City chairmen, and I've had them support.
It doesn't make it
like
right.
When Dave Jones was under pressure with Peter Ridsdale, I'd spoken to him and he said we're totally behind Dave. Got the vote of confidence. No point in me to go, and that's how the whole board is thinking.
Well, what I'm saying is,
it's the same thing. It's just a negative.
No,
it's just the chairman being more negative.
How can it be the same thing? It's two totally different things. How can it be the same thing? He's specifically made out that this is not from the board. This is my personal opinion. How can that be the same as having a statement from the club, which you know has come from the hierarchy as a whole? How can it be?
But I'm not saying they were statements from the club. I'm talking about Peter Ridsdale saying to me, as chairman, I'm totally behind Dave and the job he's doing, and we're moving forward all together. That's when Peter Ridsdale's statement. That's when Mehmet Dalman, the chairman now.
What relevance does that have?
Because these guys are the chairman of the football. These guys bosses, effectively.
No. Listen to what I'm saying. You're dodging the question and keep dodging the question. One's a personal statement. One's come from the chairman who is representing the club and has spoken on behalf of the club. He didn't say, this is my personal opinion, Ridsdale, did he? He's speaking on behalf of the club. Mehmet has specifically said, this is my personal opinion. It's totally different.
Well, I think there's a nuance between them possibly. But anyway, you're saying it's a personal statement. For me,
he said it's a personal statement.
Okay, that's a personal statement. That's a personal statement. If I make that statement, who cares? Slade's rubbish. I want him out. If the chairman of the football club makes that statement, for me, that's a totally different thing. That guy is Russell Slade's boss, effectively. It's not some bloke on the street. It's the chairman of the club. When he comes and says,
totally avoiding the point or missing the point.
Of course, I'm disappointed. I don't see how you can dismiss. I don't see how you're saying because Mehmet Dalman said this is a personal opinion. Then the whole thing is somehow is rendered unimportant. You know, why is he not involved? That's the chairman of the football club.
You're talking to me. You think like I'm stupid. I know who he is. You keep saying he's the chairman of the football. I know exactly
that's what gives it credence.
Of course it gives it credence.
Right, okay.
Of course it gives it credence. My point is, he shouldn't be giving personal statements. There's two. Listen, if things were different, you would nail him. If things were different, you would nail him.
who?
You would nail Mehmet, because you would say, right, that's fragmented, because that statement's not come from the club as a whole. That's a personal statement from one person who's one of a collective of people who will make the final decision on whether or not the manager should go or stay. He won't make the decision on his own whether Russell Slade stays or goes, will he?
He won't make the decision at all. I should think that would come from Vincent Tan.
Right then. So what have you heard from Vincent Tan? Is the manager under pressure? Have you heard that statement from Vincent Tan?
Well,
no, but I think he's under
maybe
pressure.
This is the issue. Cardiff is run slightly different. In most football clubs, when the chairman speaks, the chairman is the chairman. Is the chairman.
Right.
But with Cardiff, when the chairman speaks, it's not meaningless, of course not. But it's
not the same as Vincent Tan speaking.
Who makes a decision. And there's a lot of people here are saying Mr. Tan needs to communicate with the fans,
correct,
and not through Down, not
correct,
through Chew. He needs to lead like a leader. Good one here from Paul in Grangetown. Instead he's sat back in Malaysia. What are his plans? Another one. This club needs to sort itself out from top to bottom. Mr. Tan needs to make a statement regarding the future of the club, his plans, his investment.
Agreed.
I think he needs to bring in a director of football, maybe to oversee a revamp of the full system.
Agreed.
We need a new young manager who can unite the club and fans, start to raise the number of supporters coming through the gates. So it makes sense, yeah. Adrian, that is. So yeah.
I just don't understand how Tux is where he's placing himself. It's like he's not hearing what we're saying to him.
Not placing
we're not saying
anywhere.
that it's not important what Mehmet has said.
Right.
It has great importance. The amount of pressure it puts on increases greatly on the manager. What I'm saying is it's not a collective. We don't know what the owner's thinking. It might be directly from the owner. But if that's the case, it's from the owner and the board and it's a collective thought, why would you say these are my personal thoughts? That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying you can or can't say it. I'm saying, ideally, in a professional organisation or a professional football club, the chairman will speak on behalf of the club or the board, the decision makers, not on behalf of himself only. That is my point I'm trying to make.
It is maybe a little odd that he had to distance himself from that, but maybe again that's just because he is aware of the Tan situation. He's aware that he has to distance himself when he's making that sort of statement because he knows Mr. Tan.
Maybe, yeah, because if Mr. Tan comes out,
of the board, and
correct. If he comes out and says, "Well, he's staying,"
equally he is the chairman. He is the kind of a guy we speak to regularly, who faces up to the media to give statements, and so
he's entitled. Listen, I'm not saying he's not entitled to make the statement. Do what you want. That's your prerogative. My point is, as a club, you want a collective voice, one voice that speaks for everybody. You don't want one voice coming out and saying, well, I'm speaking for me, because someone else can come out and say something totally different. Then you've got a club at the top, it's going in two different... What happens now if Mr. Tan comes out and says he's staying? Or he gives him a new contract for next year? Where would you say that? And that statement was right in saying that?
Well, the Mehmet Elman was right in saying...
If Vincent Tan comes out now and says...
Well, you can only say it's his own personal... I suppose you could say, personally, that's how I felt at the time.
Yeah, but it hasn't helped the situation. That's what I'm saying. We all know he's under scrutiny anyway. Yeah? We all know the managers. Everybody's under scrutiny, Tux. Everybody. What I'm saying, how has that helped the situation? How has that helped the manager?
I think in many ways, that statement, if we're going on those words there, there's a kind of almost like a practical element to it in that, for a start, he was in a brief, that they came out with the briefing, didn't they, about the transfer. So he's actually asked for a start. It's not like he was suddenly just sitting at home going, I tell you what, I'm going to issue a statement saying, Russ, I'm really disappointed in Russell Slade. It wasn't that. He's in front of a bunch of journalists being saying, what about Russell Slade? I think, and he gives his opinion. So it wasn't like an uncalled for. It was actually in front of a bunch of journalists.
I can see that argument, and we would certainly welcome.
Well, you would know that, and people are going to run with it. If he is disappointed personally, I'm not saying the whole board's disappointed. If that's his opinion, he is disappointed. It would have been remiss of him if someone had said to him, "And what do you think about Russell Slade?" "Oh, he's great, he's fine. No problem."
Yeah, but you're extreme in it. He doesn't have to say that, does he? He doesn't have to say, yeah, everything's fine. He can say it in so many different ways, which isn't going to apply that sort of pressure to the manager.
I think he just shows how he personally feels about the job that Russell Slade's been doing. It's that simple. He's disappointed.
I don't agree with you. I think it is his personal opinion, but I don't think it's as simple as saying that, yeah, you should be able to well, you can say what you like, but if you're trying to get cohesion within your club and move forward, that statement, you said first time Russell Slater's kind of had a pop back. Right, so straight away, it's it's created division.
Do you think?
Do you need division at this time?
No,
of the
no,
season?
I agree with you. You don't need division. One thing, do you think Mehmet Dalman is a pretty smart guy?
I don't know. I've never.
Well,
met
he's a reasonably smart person, right? And he knows business for a start very well. How boards operate. He's been in banking and everything. Whatever you may think of it.
This is football.
Part of me, yeah, but he knows a boardroom structures is boardroom structure, and there's an owner that the board answers to.
This is football.
I'm not so sure. I don't know if I'm reading too much into this. Would he come out and say that if he knew his view was totally opposed to the guy who employed him?
Don't know.
Exactly. That's something to think about. I don't think he would. Personally,
well, we don't know.
I don't think he would come out and say, "I'm really disappointed." He's blah, blah, blah. If he knew he was going to walk off and he was going to get a call from Malaysia,
why say it's a personal
well,
statement?
because he's obviously covering himself. But I mean, if he said that and got a call from Vincent Tanner Malaysia saying, "Why the hell are you saying that? We're totally behind us." Would he say that? I don't know. Maybe it's a bit conspiracy theorist. I don't think he's daft enough to. I don't think Mehmet Dalman is daft enough to come out and make a statement that is totally at odds to the thinking of the guy who employs him.
Yeah. Okay.
Like any chairman worth his salt operating in business circles.
Okay. Let's move on from that one. Well, only ever so slightly. Let's deal properly with the transfer embargo. It's a complicated business, and in truth, we don't really know the full details because Cardiff are not publishing their accounts. They say that. Well, they were taken aback by it. They say they have complied with the rules. There's a suggestion that within the rules, TAN has put too much money in, that sort of thing.
Put too much money in.
Yeah,
well,
in 3 million more cash in, which has taken it to 30 million, which has pushed them over. And from what I've heard, Premier League ruling, they wouldn't have been under embargo, but Football League ruling, they are. So the club are in a position to appeal it.
It's an odd one again. Is it just a cock-up?
We just don't know, do we? That the short and tall of it is until you...
Because they know that everything that's happened over the last year under Slade has been designed to avoid...
Exactly. They have been working towards... They've mentioned it lots of times. If you look back, they've gone under the new financial things. Often when you talk to Dalman or to whoever, Slade himself, so there's new structures in place. We had... And it still leads to this... well, it's got to be seen as a bit of a mess up, really, isn't it? I mean, you can't see it in any other light than that it's a mistake. Mistakes have been made, whether on purpose or accidentally, not quite understanding the rules. I mean, they say. I mean, there is talk as well. As we say, we're not totally a favour with it. There's talk of them appealing it, isn't there, as well? I don't know if that's going to happen. So. If they do, they obviously must believe that they have a case that they somehow they do actually fall within the guidelines. There's been a misreading somewhere along the line. So
well, they do, but they certainly haven't said they're going to appeal. There's something about if they were to do it, it would have to be within the spirit of the situation, whatever. That was from Mehmet Dalman.
Personally speaking,
the spirit of the situation. I mean, what does it? What does it change? Does it
strengthen the trade?
Is that the end of the season? Because another thing Dalman said, not to keep going back to it, signing 1 or 2 players wasn't going to be what tipped getting into the top 6 or not this season.
Well, BC, that's where you
slightly disagree with that.
Yeah, I would signing 1 or 2 players. Might be what just
you replace Kenwyn. We spoke on here. You replace Kenwyn with a target guy who gets 10 goals.
Well, not only will Kenwyn not be replaced, Tony Watt, I suppose, is the first casualty. He will not be joining. So you've lost up until 2 weeks ago. Your best player, your best strike force was Tony Watt and Kenwyn Jones. And now neither of them are at the club, and they're not going to be for the rest of the season. So
and Noon's not going to be scoring worldies every game.
No.
Right. That's the.
So is that, or how much the positive of the
I think Cardiff need to reboot me. I do. I press the reset button. I go from 10-year-olds right the way to my first team and up into the board. And I would reboot the whole thing. First of all, I would discover how we as a club want to play, function, philosophy if you like. And then I would start to implement things into that. Cardiff have had over the last 5 or 6 years the cream of the crop of youngsters going into their academy, yet no academy players have gone on to play for the first team. Now, have they got the cream of the crop in their coaching? Because you're not going to have a great player if you've got a bang average coach, because you know what's going to happen. He's just going to go the opposite way where you need him to go. So that's one thing, 2 things, 3 things. Then you've got the 18s. What chance have they got to move to 21s? Then you've got about 20 under 21 players. What chance have they going on to the first team if you've got a first team that is largely built on signing people, which we have done over the last 3 years. So,
we've gone through all that before, and it's I don't think anybody disagrees, but it's certainly not going to happen.
They need it's kind of like I think that's what QPR have done. They've tried to press this isn't working. We keep chasing, and it's like the finger in the dike. We plug this problem and another one appears, we plug this problem. Your best way to say, okay, let's just start again and reboot and get our foundation, get a strategy in place, and away we go. And people got to be accountable when the results aren't happening, whether that's, professionals turning into quality players, whether it's, recruitment, you're not getting enough quality players into your youth system or your academy system, whatever. But for me, it's too difficult to try and sort this part and sort that. I just restart from the bottom.
But they brought Joe Rowles through, so if we look back over the years, they haven't had a massive. You look back at Ramsey and. Well, he may have been bought at some point, but he went through. Exactly. He wasn't from found in Grangetown. He went. I'm not sure what age he joined. No, maybe he did. But he did come through.
They bought him as like a 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old, I think.
But he sort of has progressed through the latter ends of that system.
Didn't he? I'll find out now. Didn't he come from Yeovil?
Something like that. I'm sure he's a West Country.
Hey, I'm looking for success stories.
We haven't got any.
Here and now, what is Cardiff City's strike force for the rest of the season?
Good question.
Pilkington and Mason on Saturday's evidence.
And what about McKay? Because obviously he links with Bristol City. McKay.
Well, I think he might go. I think he might go in the sense that it frees up and potentially a chance to bring someone in, doesn't it? From what I understand of this flaming transferring back, if players go out, can't they? Somebody help me on this, because I'm not. Can't they bring someone in? I don't know, on cheaper wages. I honestly think McKay.
I think really wants to be.
He's gone through so many injuries. He's fit now. I think he's really straining at the leash to play. And he doesn't seem to be getting an opportunity to cover. So I think there's a potential that he might go. I see he's linked to Bristol City, and we ran a story a week or so, a couple of weeks ago, that there had been interest. Cardiff City told me there had been interest in him. So all this Bristol City stuff, apart from the fact there's no manager at Bristol City, sort of ties up. But apparently it's still going on. But so I wouldn't be at all surprised in that, because he's seen as, I think, the desire to move off some of the more fringy guys is there still. They still.
It's critical, isn't it? It's vital. You do.
They still want to cut back. So that's potentially what could happen. As for Blakey's rebooting the whole club, sounds good. I don't know how it's actually achieved when you find yourself in the situation you are now with the size of the squad and the amount of people you've got. How. Sounds like quite a painful process, I presume.
It's a long
to
process,
go through, so whether
it's long term, you're looking. You want a stable, you want your club on a stable footing. Otherwise, we just move from situation to situation.
Would getting promoted this season, would that solve all their ills? Do you think, their problems? I don't know.
I don't think it'd solve their problems. I think financially, you're put them in a situation where the changes what I'm talking about could happen far more quickly. But it doesn't still stop the fact that.
But if they were to go to the Premier League, they wouldn't be rushing out to play so and so from the under-18s. You know what they would be doing? They would be like, we need so and so from Dortmund for 9 million to get the goals. We need a midfielder from South America. You know what it's like. So, I don't know right now. Obviously everybody wants to go up, but it could be a bit of a poison chalice for them in a way, I think, going up. Maybe they need to consolidate, maybe they need...
Probably a long way off, I suppose, isn't it, really? But you never know. I suppose 5 points off the top 6.
And the owner might... if you got up, the owner... this is another thing, I don't think anyone knows whether the owner would stay or would sell. There's no one knows. We kind of move on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. We don't, like the fans are saying, come out and give a statement of...
There's definitely room for Vincent Tan to like we said at Christmas, didn't we, was a good opportunity, and I still think it would be a benefit.
So
I mean, obviously he thinks, what does he gain? He doesn't care, maybe, whatever.
Well,
but
I suppose he's just waiting and just observing and just doesn't want to come out and make any statements on anything, managers or anything like that until... What about the
the noises within the club, whatever credence you give them, are that yes, he's into it, yes, he wants... by people who know him and speak to him regularly, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out who they are.
Again,
I can only say what I'm told, though, in a way. When you're not going to go by the way.
That's the
Vincent
relevance
Tan
of
doesn't
it,
care
though.
less. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's the relevance of it. The silence speaks volumes, really, to me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But you don't actually know.
But the noises within the club are that he's into it. But
like I say,
certain.
I'm not going to come out and say the opposite today.
It's interesting because obviously season tickets for next season that becomes an issue very soon, I think, doesn't it? They sort of over the next couple of weeks they normally sort of reveal prices.
I see they're doing a good thing. They're doing a ticket deal for Rotherham. I think I was looking somewhere now. Season ticket holders can take a couple of mates for a tenner and all that. I know you're not a big fan of that kind of a ticket deal thing.
I am. I think anything make cheaper for the fans is
that's
great.
A good thing, yeah.
Is great, but it's being done because the crowds
no one wants to go.
Correct. It's not being done at the
but
time.
But they're sort of like damned if they do and damned if they don't. Why are they doing
I'm saying those are the kind of things like if you do when the club's on up. You give the fans something back. You might pay for their transport for an away game. For 3 or 4 times in a season, or you might say, right, and the next 2 home games you can bring a friend for a tenner. They're fantastic,
I'm lucky I haven't got any friends.
Not giveaways. I'll be a friend.
Well, you pay a tenner for a ticket? I will have seen it all then.
For me, not for you. But
it's a good thing.
They're good things, but it's coming at the time when crowds they're not going down slightly, bit by bit. They seem to be dramatically falling. We're halfway through the season. We're probably we're averaging 13,000, something like that. 12,000, 13,000.
13,
14. There's a few comments ended to finish.
Scary, man.
Steve Graham says Cardiff must have known about the financial fair play embargo coming up. So why did they let Slade come out and make comments about possible transfer signings in January, etc.? Surely they didn't didn't keep him in the dark as well as the Cardiff public. The whole saga smacks of total disdain towards the fans by the Cardiff board, and they wonder why attendances have collapsed. Bob says the transfer embargo could be a good thing for us. The squad on paper is good enough. Now they can prove everyone wrong and go on. Consistency is the key, but please, fans, come back and get behind the team and the manager. It is possible to bring players in or even bring back other players that are loaned out to other clubs.
There's so many. I've not heard so much positive Slade stuff. I know off the back of that win. There's another one there. You come back and support the manager. And it just interests me because we've had so little of it for so long.
Things forward then before we finish from Jacob. What do you think of the odds of us picking up 12 points from our next 4 games? Rotherham home, Huddersfield away, MK Dons at home and Charlton away. The games you sort of touched upon that. They're very winnable, etc.
If they play like they played at Wolves, really good chance. Because they would be. A team like that would be buzzing like they were there. I know we had worldy goals, but just all round there were other chances. A fantastic chance. The thing is, as we said earlier, you just don't know what you're going to get with them. It would not surprise me at all if they go to Rotherham and they lose 2-1. I don't want it. I didn't want it to happen. It's got to be a nightmare. But it's just you can't rule it out.
Well, put it this way.
Cannot rule it out.
I didn't see that performance coming.
Goodness me, no.
Every time you think Slade's dead, he does something, and every time you think he's turning a corner, he crashes.
You end up, yeah.
So there's no consistency.
You end up,
like Bob said, it's the word of the day is consistency. For me, that's a mental issue as well. Obviously, what you're doing on a day-to-day in training affects all this, and whether you're happy around the club and training ground and what have you. All that is relevant, but it's one of them, John.
The thing that worries me, I don't see.
It is,
I don't see any evidence. I know we didn't see that performance coming or something, but under Slade, it's like we've always said. Remember, they were good at home. They couldn't win away. They went away. We've not
no
we've not seen any signs of it. So, despite all my hopes, all my instincts say, why should it happen now?
Last season, we went through a 6-month period where we were home and away. We were brilliant. We haven't. He's right. When Russell came in, I think we couldn't win away.
They didn't win till December, did they?
I remember we were saying on here, one of them's going to give. You can't continue to do one and not the other. You know, you can't continue to win your own games. And then all of a sudden they started winning away, but then they were quite scared of playing at home, and the home form dipped. So we kind of went into like a we flirted with relegation for a bit last season, and then we finished stronger and had a decent run at the end of the season, which took us up and out of harm's way. But consistency has been the problem for me under Russell Slade, and I think if I was advising him, that would be the key. Where are we falling down? That is where all the work would be at the moment, is trying to find the key to that consistency. And like I said, we don't know what it is. It could be training, it could be people ain't happy, it could be that some are happy and others aren't, or you know what I mean? We don't know what the key is, but if he can find that and find a level of consistency, I think that would go some way to some fans saying, maybe not loving him or liking him, but saying, okay, I'll at least tolerate it and start going back because the football we're playing is decent, you know, it's entertaining, I enjoy myself. And I know, like Tuck said a couple of weeks ago, it's not about entertainment. Well, it is. If I go to pay for a ticket and I don't enjoy it, I'm not going to keep going to something. Sooner or later, and of course with other things going on, sooner or later I'm going to go, do you know what, I might take my daughter to swimming this weekend, and you're not going back to the city. Why? Because you really enjoyed that. You've entertained yourself. Do you know what I mean? You're getting something pleasurable from it. And that's football, isn't it? We all love it, but you want to enjoy it. You don't want it becomes a dark place when it's...
I mean, I should say, you want them to go on this run now when they've got and the games are there. I have to say, the only cynical part of you says, why? I don't see any evidence from before. I don't see any evidence for the But I tell you what would be interesting. I mean, I think I've got my fixtures right here. That 3 or 4 games, you know, the Charlton, MK Dons, and Huddersfield. I think if they did come out of that with 12 points or 3 wins out of 4, 3 wins and a draw, whatever. They got Brighton. I think I'm right. I think they got Brighton at home then. Now that would be interesting, to just crowd-wise, wouldn't it? Because suddenly you come out of there and they'd probably be back in the playoffs with a run like that, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
That would be a real acid
It's a great
test.
opportunity, isn't it?
That Brighton, who had done so well, you know, Brighton home, City back in 5th or some 6th.
It's never that easy to win 4 games back to back, regardless of the opposition.
And as we say, I'm getting all carried away as usual because there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever that will happen. And
but you hope there's a first time for everything.
But the thing is, as well, you made me all worried. This Nuninho's not going to score worldly goals.
Come on, you got to put that much.
Why not? Why isn't he going to score?
Can't put that much pressure on the boy.
He should
you know what I mean?
He should be.
But his confidence and his form, I expect to see him play well now to the end of the season.
I would like to think so.
He is an important part of us playing in a way which is entertaining.
I tell you what, I don't mind him cutting inside all the time if he's going to curl it in the bottom corner. I tell you that. That's all right by me. But, well, we know his class. It's just been a matter of getting the performances out. And I think he's had injuries as well. But, no, I really do hope now that they can go on this. Let's not run before we can walk. Back-to-back wins for only the 2nd time this season by beating Rotherham. I'll take a 1-0. I don't know about everybody else.
I'll take a 1-0, mate. I'll just take a win,
Yeah.
Should we go with them as predictions?
Get some on a roll.
4-0 Cardiff. Nuninho hat-trick. All from outside the box. If you want a prediction, I go
for... By the way, sorry, remember that left foot volley he had early on?
Yeah, that went
wide. Yeah. Imagine if that had gone in. What a hat-trick that would have been.
Well, it would have been too much.
It would be like one of yours, Blakey.
I still say he should have shot.
Proud of one of them.
He should have shot instead of passing to Rolls. He got his hat-trick. I would have. Nice and selfish.
And he'd done that, just before that, he'd done the defender seat because he got one early and whipped it in with his right foot. Because every time he kept cutting back on his left. And that's what I'd say to him. If I was
really
a manager,
mix it up, yeah.
Mix it up.
I'd love to see him go.
Get round
what I
him
don't
more.
get is with Noon is he got that ability to get past the man down the outside and get. He's got that, but he's
at the moment his confidence isn't.
Do you think he should?
Where it is, he's going to go on his stronger
Do you think
side.
we'd see that if he played on the left?
No, I think you'll see it more now with him feeling he should be on top of the world.
Well, it's a great interview with him after the game. He is saying, hi Noon.
Hi Moon.
Took our designers. I came up with that. I hadn't even thought of that, but that's by the way. But let's hope. I'll go for 2-0 Cardiff against Rotherham.
Cool.
I'll go for 2-1. And I'm going to go with...
Not keeping you up, are we?
Ravel to score the winner. Ravel to come on and get the winner against his old club.
There we go.
That's how it works.
Okay.
Crazy like that.
All right, good stuff, chaps.
Great.
Particularly enjoyed the 45-minute argument. Which
Yeah.
And that's the good thing, because you know when you're so close to someone, you can argue with them all the time. That's what me and Blakey haven't got. That's just like a normal round.
Let's see our car journey, mate. Sometimes we'll just sit looking like I'll be out the window and he'll be driving looking out the window.
Yeah, we always laugh it off in the end.
We do.
We're probably having a fight later on now. We're rolling around on the floor.
Don't fight.
No.
He's a lover, not a fighter. Yay!
Indeed. On that note, thank you, chaps. We'll leave it there. Thank you for all your comments and questions for the boys. We'll be back same time, same place next week, and you can join Steve live on. Is he doing Rotherham Saturday?
I am. I'm going to be at Rotherham, Cardiff, Rotherham, and I'm looking forward to it very much.
There's something exciting to look forward to. See you next time.
Au revoir.